In this video, I'm going to show you some examples of why good modeling hygiene is important when working in games. We're going to show a little bit about how try count matters and a lot about batch counts, materials, and how it affects your stuff in an engine. So I do have a scene I've already pre-modeled, and we're going to be using the Unity engine as our demo engine to show, how different things react in engines. So this is my good scene where I have a well-modeled wall. All the extra triangles are gone. If we go to the attribute editor, we can see that it has one trim sheet texture applied as well as the wallpaper applied, since it does use a tileable wall texture, and it has this wood on a trim sheet that it's calling. The floor is a very simple floor. It doesn't need any more geometry than just being a plane. So it's, just a plane, 2 tries for the whole thing. And let's clear out that history while we're at it. And it has one material applied. Same thing for this table. This table is, let me make sure I apply that material correctly. I want it to be the same as the floor, so let's do floor mat so that it is using the same material. And we see now, let me show you that. Oh, I accidentally have the wrong materials. I have a bunch of materials I did not mean to be on there. I do know it needs to be a single material. I can tell that under the attribute editor because I see all that garbage. Let me just go ahead and assign the one I need, just that floor mat, and we'll clear up that history. And this is our good scene. So 3 materials total, across all of these. Some of them do share materials, like the floor and the the table do share a material. And they are actually named correctly. So floor mat. Let's clear this one out. I should not have these on there. Let me fix this real quick. Oh, this is my bad wall. I'm sorry. You're not meant to see that one yet. There we go. Trim sheet, wallpaper mat. So this is all good to go. So that's the good set. Let's take a look at the bad set and see what is wrong with it, even though it at first glance looks the same. So there's the bad floor, there's the bad wall, and there is the bad table. On the outside, if you were just to glance at it, it's like, but they look the same. What's wrong with it? Well, the floor has a lot more cuts than needed. So remember, our good floor had 2 tries. Leaving all of these extra cuts in there, we're up to 200 tries with just all of this default edge loops in there. The wall looks normal at first, but this is a common thing I see happen with students is when we're working with, materials across multiple objects or even on singular objects, is you accidentally apply materials incorrectly. So if we look over here, we can see that, it's using the wallpaper mat and the trim sheet, but we also see this Lambert 6, Lambert 8, Lambert 7, Lambert 5, because these all have their own material assigned to them. So they were set up in Maya correctly to look good, but we have way too many materials on this. I've seen this with using multiple materials where you don't reuse the same material. Like we should have been reusing trim sheet mat on all of these different pieces, and we didn't. We just made new materials. Or you have an object that is meant to be just on one unwrap, where students will assign, it's one unwrap, but this is the metal area. So I make a material called metal, and then this is the wood area, and I assign a material called wood, even though there's supposed to be one single material over in Substance Painter. So let's see what happens when we do accidentally have all of these other materials on there. Now for the bad table. The bad table is bad because the person who modeled it they just grouped it. They said, it's the same thing. I'm just going to group this. It's made of a bunch of little primitives. I'm going to group it together and call it a day and export it out. I'm not actually going to select all and combine it. It also is really naughty that it has a whole bunch of, so Lambert 13, Lambert 12, Lambert 10, Lambert 9. Not only are all these individual pieces have a different material on them, we don't even know what they are because they're named really poorly. So those are our good models and our bad models. And I'm going to export all of them over into Unity. So give me a second to unhide everything. And we're going to do a game exporter. I already have it set up to export multiples to my demo Unity file. There you go. And let's hop over to Unity and start looking at our assets. I already have the scene set up. It's just a plain scene. Oops, it's focused, so that it just has a camera and one real-time light in there. I'm going to turn the real-time light off for a second. I took out the skybox so that if we go to the game window, we have as minimal batches as we possibly can. So we just have 5 just kind of on the start of an empty scene. So let's start importing in objects and take a look at how it changes the batches. And I'm going to go through the good ones first. So let's drop in first our good wall. No, we'll do the good floor. It's easy. I do need to rotate them though. And we can see that, we went from 5 to 7. So this has a batch load of 2 because it is an object and it does have a material associated with it. So we have a batch of 2. Let's turn that real-time light on and watch what happens. So batch of 2, only 9 tries, I think. Let's see, how many is it registering here? So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that means we have 4 tries from our floor because, again, forward rendering in Unity. So things, your try count in Maya is not one-to-one in Unity. We have to keep that in mind. So let's see. So 4 and 2, we turn our real-time light on with shadows and we jump our batches up to 9. So that means that, we went from, we're adding 2 more batches just for this floor for adding that real-time light. And our try count also jumped because we are now having real-time light in there. Let's add in our wall now, our nice wall. Let me rotate that. And we jump up to a batch count of 17. And I will put the good table in. And let me move it around a little bit. Get it so it's positioned nicely. There we go. And we ultimately have a batch count of 21 with a try count of 3.6 with our good setup of all of our materials correctly. All of our materials done correctly. We got rid of extra polys. Things are combined as well. If we go ahead and we set these to static and we hit play, we should get a little extra savings too. See, since we set those to static so that they can batch on play, we are saving 6 on batching, and we are down to a batch count of 15. All right, so that's our good. So we'll just say with this number though, batches 21, tries 3.6. So let's hide these and let's start dropping in our bad ones. So remember, floor bad is the one that had, our original floor, once we drop it in with the lighting and the textures, has I think it ended up being what, like 6 tries altogether? What does our bad floor have? 805. We now have an extreme amount of triangles and we're not getting anything visibly better from it. It looks exactly the same, but we are now suffering more tries. And, one doesn't seem bad, but what if this was a larger level? We have to have, 10 of these floors, 20 of these floors. That try count starts adding up real quick. Let's drop in our bad wall. Remember, the bad wall, if we look at our importer, is the one where we have the two correct ones, but we weren't paying attention and we added a bunch of extra materials, even though they look exactly, it looks exactly the same. Let's drop that in. Rotate this around. Our batch count is now at 33. Even though it is, all of these shaders are using the same texture on the, it physically, looks the same. It is not the same to the game engine, and it has all of these extra materials that are loading, messing with our batches. We're at 33 batches, and we only have these two items. All right, let's add in our bad table. Remember that bad table that we didn't bother to group together? We didn't bother to combine together. We just exported it out as a group. This also would happen if you just you didn't group it, you just had a bunch of objects that you selected all of them and exported it out without combining them. So we're at 33. We are now at 97. This table alone has, tripled? It's like, taking what was there and doubling it and adding it to it. So we're at a much higher 97. I got mad for a second because I moved it. I think I didn't like the shadows yet. See how if I go into the wall, the shadows start to bump it up. That is so much batches just for one object. Why is this table so much higher than the other table? It's because of how we exported it. And this is why it's really important to understand when you're exporting it, what you're doing, and that you export it correctly. Because if we open this up, look, there's all of our things we did not name. We don't know exactly what they are, but they do look visibly the same. But all of those individual things come in as individual objects. So we have batch count, batch, 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 batch. All of those little legs, every single cylinder we made is adding to that batch count. This is why it's extremely important to make sure we know, calling it kind of modeling hygiene. Did you combine your objects to a single object for your game engine? Did you apply the materials correctly in Maya the way that you're supposed to, so that your objects have the minimal amount of materials assigned to them in Maya? Did you delete out faces you don't need, or are you leaving in a whole bunch of edges that are unnecessary? Because this is going to raise, you're gonna have significant problems in your game engine. Let's see here. So one of the things I do, we're looking at batches of 89, 90. Depending on the system that you're working on, your batches, it's going to vary. Obviously, if you're working on a high-end AAA PC game, your batch count's going to be higher, but you're going to have a lot more assets. I like to mention that I worked on a game where two of the target systems, one was Switch and one was Quest 2, and they had a very similar amount that we had to work towards, and I was allowed at one time, like what's rendering on the screen, I could only have batches of about 180 at one time. That was like the maximum. So if you see this, we're halfway there, and we just have a wall, a table, and a floor. We don't have any kind of UI, we don't have any kind of characters, we don't have any lighting except for one light. We don't have anything at all going on, and we're already halfway through our budget. Hopefully you've found this interesting. Hopefully you found it helpful on why some of us, when you're learning 3D modeling, we're very stringent about poly counts, material usage, etc., because when you start getting into the more advanced stuff with putting it into game engines, it has a significant impact.